WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call or text 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
Good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program, where I know Talking Birds with Ray Brown is really Jesse Wilkins' favorite program. But, he makes me feel good when he says it. So,
that's right.
We'll just go with that. Hey, we have a great guest on today. We have a guy that I've known for quite a few years, I guess now, Brian Lohnes. And I'm reading something that says, Brian Lohnes, plain and simple, I love things with tires on them. Brian, good morning, and welcome back to the Car Doctor program.
Good morning, John. Thanks for having me on, man. All things are good, man.
Absolutely. You just came back from like a whirlwind tour. What have you been up to?
I've been running around. It's certainly hot and heavy drag racing season, so I've been kind of all over the country the last month, from Boise, Idaho to Seattle and Sonoma, and was just in Indianapolis last week for the unveiling of the new timing tower at Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park, where we're heading this week for the U.S. Nationals, biggest drag race in the world.
And before we get on to that, drag racing speeds now are crazy. What was the latest record-breaking speed?
Yeah, so Brittany Forrest went 343 miles an hour in Sonoma this year, which was reset it's the all-time speed record in the sport. So it's been pretty wild this year. There's been a really kind of big escalation in speeds. Funny cars repeatedly going over 340, but Brittany's 343 brought the house down out there in California. It really was pretty stunning, because we never see, especially this day and age, we don't see speed records broken by multiple miles an hour anymore. And she crushed it by 2 miles an hour out there at Sonoma, so it was wild.
I'm all over the place this morning, like Jesse is apparently. So, tell us a little bit about your history and how you get into this. I read something about you were sleeping in your car for a while, kind of going back and forth between towers.
Not Jay Leno style, but I was back in the day. I would go up for the weekend, and my college, I went to UMass, so I was traveling a couple hours back and forth to the track. So I was just started to stay and sleep in the cab of my truck overnight, and then the track operator let me sleep inside the gate, which was a big upgrade. So that's I started locally, and like Mike Joy. Mike Joy, started down in Connecticut at Stafford Springs and some of the other Connecticut tracks, and he ultimately became the guy who's the lead broadcaster for NASCAR on Fox. And it's kind of cool that we get two New England guys on the two big series.
Yeah, it really is. And you dabbled in a little bit of drag racing too, right?
Yeah, I raced with my dad, back in the day, and my dad still races. He actually just a weekend or 2 weekends ago just won a race up in Canada, so he's still at it. And I was so good at it, I started to drive a microphone. So that was I promoted myself right out of the driver's seat there. But it was a lot of fun, and I raced with him for several years when I was growing up.
And maybe reaction time killed you as a drag racer, but certainly not reaction time. Not reaction time on the microphone. You are super quick on the mic.
Yeah, I think that's just it's like conditioned response, I guess, over the course of time. I've watched this stuff now for half my life, so you kind of get yourself mentally prepared for what's going on, and you try to give people a real time kind of analysis of what's happening. So it's one of the most fun parts of, I guess, the job, is kind of being on my toes and waiting for the unexpected to happen in front of us. It's between stuff blowing up and being on fire, and it's been a heck of a season, and we've seen our fair share of craziness. So it always keeps me on my toes.
And you have some really good lines when stuff happens. Like somebody's really, really fast or something blows up, and and those, I assume, just come out of the ether somewhere. But you do it amazingly well.
Yeah, thank you. I love to read, so there's a lot of times I'll run across some interesting phraseology in a book or something like that and make a note for myself. But you really can't crowbar that stuff in. You kind of have it floating around in the back of your head, so if something does happen, you can use it. But it's impossible to try to script out something, because it just sounds, it sounds really forced. And every once in a while, you'll be watching sports, and there'll be whether it's play-by-play guy or reporter that clearly has something that they've wanted to say the whole time, and whether the moment fits or not, they're just going to say it anyway. And it'll make you cringe if it's not, if it doesn't fit right, it doesn't work. So, I think for me, I take a lot of notes between races and stuff. And if I run across things that are interesting, I try to commit them to some part of my memory where I can pull them up pretty quick.
Yeah, I know, I've watched you do this before, and, and like you said, sometimes you kind of wonder, you're watching somebody talking or doing something, and you kind of say, well, how long you been holding that one up to use, and
Right.
And it's great when it just comes out naturally, and you seem to be really good at that. Tell us, you're in the booth with Tony Pedregon. Who else are your sort of teammates?
So Tony's if I'm the play-by-play guy, Tony's the kind of color analyst, and then I work with guys like David Freiberger, who's been a great friend of mine for 20 years, like one of the ultimate car guys in the country. He's joined our broadcast team this year, working about half the schedule. Bruno Massel's a guy that a lot of people know from shows like Garage Squad and Truck U. He's a 4-time world champion drag racer in a class called Competition Eliminator. Nobody else has ever done that before. So he's a great friend, a great reporter. Amanda Busick, if you watch, sports car racing or you watch the NASCAR Truck Series, you'll see her dabbling in that stuff as well. And Jordan Vandegrift's a young Top Fuel driver that's between rides right now, and he's been working with us last couple of seasons. And it's a really, it's a good group of people. I mean, when you make these shows, there's 75 or 80 people involved to make these things, and people see 3 or 4 of us over the course of a broadcast, but there's literally dozens of people making these things happen. It's a wild process.
Yeah, I remember you had a program on before. You've had a couple of programs, right? You had a kind of a bring what you run, run what you brung kind of race, and you also had kind of, was it your version of like Two Guys Garage or something like that?
Yeah, it was actually really what it was the it technically was Two Guys Garage as it kind of moved forward. It was like Shade Tree Mechanic back in the day with Sam Manolo and those guys, and I was on what would have been the 3rd or 4th kind of iteration of that same show. I kind of came in after Sam retired, and I did that show for several years. We shot it down in Johnson City, Tennessee. I worked with a guy named John Gardner, super good guy, great mechanic, and it was that type of show. We did parts installs, we looked at new products and did all that type of stuff. And the other show is called Put Up or Shut Up, and you can still find it if you have Amazon Prime. You can look it up, and we made a couple seasons of that. It was a racing show, and the premise was that we would find two. We would either do interesting styles of racing, like big rig drag racing with these hot rodded big rigs, or we go out to circle tracks and pit, 2 different styles of cars against each other that normally didn't race, but ran about the same lap times. And we had a lot of fun. I mean, we did some pretty crazy stuff. We drag raced pulling tractors on that show with multiple engines on them, side by side. Nobody had ever done that before. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. And I remember talking to you about it, and you said, and you talk about crews. I think you said your GoPro crew had like a dozen people in it.
Yeah. We did Freiberg and I made a show years ago for Facebook when Facebook Watch first started. They were doing all this original programming, and we did a series. It was called the $3,000 Hoopty Challenge, and we shot it at Tucson Dragway, and we had a massive crew on that show. We made 4 or 5 episodes all in the span of a couple of days, and there were like 20 people, GoPro and cars up and down. I mean, it was a huge production, and again, you can find that on Facebook if you love like jalopy style racing, and it was a very kind of fun, irreverent show. But the $3,000 Hoopty Challenge.
Yeah, those kind of things always sort of appeal to me because it seems like that's the kind of stuff you can wrench in your driveway and make it work.
Oh yeah, and it was kind of a funny show to make because the initial couple episodes were Freiberger and I basically picking the cars that were going to race, and our job was to determine whether the thing was actually worth $3,000 or if it was worth too much money, which is kind of the opposite of every other show in the world where you want to find the good cars. We were looking for the worst junk we could find to make sure it was kind of accurate. So it was a blast to make that.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on, the Motor Trend channel going away? And, is that just a sign of the times money-wise that, they just couldn't, those kind of programs just couldn't keep going?
Yeah, I mean, the Warner Brothers Discovery thing got real difficult for Motor Trend, and it's unfortunately they were a byproduct of a lot of like media consolidation going on right now.
Yeah.
But I think the good thing that's happened here is that Motor Trend, Hot Rod, those brands got bought by Hearst, and Hearst is a magazine media company. They're not a television production business or a movie production business that owned a magazine or a couple of brands. So you're going to start to see, and I would not expect to see it back on regular TV as its own channel, but you're going to start to see a load of new cool car shows coming out of that Hearst side of things as they get more into the video stuff. And that's going to be like, you're going to find all that stuff on like the Motor Trend YouTube channel and stuff like that. And, I know Mike Galimi, who's the brand director for Hot Rod, was able to kind of navigate the company or the brand through some tough times at Warner Brothers Discovery. And they have a way better future in front of them now than they did before they left that. So yeah, it stinks to lose the Motor Trend channel, but at the same time, a lot of the people that made those shows are doing their own thing on YouTube. They're doing their own thing here and there. So it's still out there. You just got to go look for it.
Yeah, I know personally, I think it was just this weekend, Freiberger had, I've been on YouTube for a year and this is what I learned sort of thing.
Yes.
And,
yes.
He hinted around that, coming up with the Engine Masters type of show could come back again. He likes, like you, he likes history. And I think, is there kind of a running race of who's been to the most abandoned drag strips?
Yeah, he and I have a pretty good head-to-head battle going. I still have him by, just because of the nature of my job, I still have him by a pretty wide margin, but he's chipping away at him. So my lead was once like 80 or 90 tracks, and I think it's down to 40 or 50 overall now. So I need to get back on the horse there and stretch it back out again.
But you're right. You kind of look around, and I guess I spend way too much time on YouTube, but you kind of look around and, Freiberger's doing what he's doing with his channel. Mike Finnegan's doing what he's doing with his channel. There's a lot of really good car content out there for people. They just have to look for it and look in a little bit different place for it.
Yeah, and you get to find what you like. I mean, if you're into the traditional hot rodding stuff, those two guys are great. I mean, there's so many guys out there doing great content with, different styles of cars, and whether it's the, European stuff or guys just building crazy things like, Cletus McFarland and all his antics. There really is something out there for everybody. And again, if you put in the extra 5 minutes to jump on, the search thing and look up what you like, you're going to find it.
Now, did Cletus close his track for a month or so to do some renovations to it?
Yeah, they closed the drag strip because, one, it's the middle of summer in Florida, so it's miserable down there anyway, but they did a bunch of upgrades. They paved a bunch of stuff, upgraded a bunch of the infrastructure, bathrooms. So, yeah, he's the great thing about that guy is he's the type of guy that puts, money, his money goes where his mouth is. So, he when he became a fully, vested partner in the drag strip, he owned the circle track that's basically attached to the drag strip. But once he got in with the drag strip, he made major investments there to improve it for everybody. So it's great.
And he's like 30 years old, right?
Basically, yeah, I think he's right around 30. Yeah. 30, owns a bunch of helicopters, owns the racetracks, owns an airport. He's done pretty well for himself.
Yeah, just like you.
Yeah. I'm still waiting on that airport I'm going to buy at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you look at drag racing, and and I think with me, I don't know, maybe it's my ADD or something. I really enjoy drag racing because it's quick. It's for me to watch NASCAR, I get a little bit bored. But for me to watch, and I still like NASCAR, but I love the behind the scenes part of NASCAR more than the actual racing part. But for me, watching drag racing it's first off, in-person experience can't, you have to do it at least once if you like it.
Exactly. I always tell people, if you have just any passing interest in cars, and I'm not looking to make you a lifelong fan here, but if you have any interest in cars, you owe it to yourself to just attend a national drag race once, just to get the idea of what these things sound and feel like, because it is a really unique experience. Like, I've been to a bunch of NASCAR races and they are awesome, but like, you don't get the access to the pit area. You don't see the guys rebuilding the engines. And of course the noise is just beyond description. So it does get every single one of your senses. That's a fact.
Yeah. And these drivers are crazy athletes too. To be able to absorb, what is it, like 9 Gs of deceleration or something?
Yeah, upwards of 7. Yeah, so they see in the middle of a really good run, a driver will see like 6.5 to 7 Gs positive, and then really less than 2 seconds later, there'll be 6.5 to 7 Gs negative when the parachutes hit. So that's why you see these like very fit people get out of a car that they've driven for, really under acceleration less than 5 seconds, and they're all winded and out of breath. And these are, like you said, these are fit people. They are trained. They do all the stuff, but it legitimately knocks the wind out of you every single time you pull the chute.
Yeah, and it's not just drag racing. I mean, you go back to NASCAR. The idea of anybody who's ever done anything like, I don't, down here in a couple of weeks on Cape Cod, there's going to be a go-kart race for charity, the Seaside Le Mans. Okay. And great little race. It's at Mashpee Commons. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's free to watch. But, you get in one of those go-karts and do like 30 laps, you're exhausted when you get out.
Well, yeah. No, the endurance that it takes, even, in modern stock car racing, those guys don't get enough credit because, and we've seen it over the last couple of years, people getting out of the cars with heat stroke and extreme dehydration and all that stuff. I mean, the interior temperatures of those things are way over 100 degrees, and you're doing it for hours. And yes, they have power steering, but that doesn't take the G load off of your body from constantly cornering. And, we've actually seen some drag racers over the course of the last couple of years have, heat exhaustion issues and stuff like that. And it's a funny thing to say. It's a very physically taxing thing. And when we get to Indy this week, it's, longest race of the year. We start racing at Indy on Wednesday, and we don't finish till the following Monday. And there'll be about 1,000 cars there of all the different classes. And, you see people bouncing around on Wednesday when we get there, and you see a lot of people with dragging knuckles and drooping eyelids by the time we get finished on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, I was amazed, and only because I've known him for years and years, and I think Dale Quarterly, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And, he ran the Craftsman truck race, and then an hour later ran the ARCA race. And I'm like, he's 62 years old. How did he do that? Yeah,
some of these guys are just built different, man. Just built different. It is indefatigable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. 4 wide. What's your thoughts on that? I happen to really like 4 wide.
Yeah, it cuts both ways. A lot of people dislike it. For the first time ever for this year, we usually have our 4 wide races in the spring, one in Vegas, one in Charlotte. Those are the only 2 4 wide tracks we have. And normally when we go to Charlotte in the fall, part of what we call the countdown of the championship, which is the playoff season of NHRA drag racing, normally it's the 2 wide race. And for the first time ever, we're going to have a 4 wide race in this countdown portion of the year. And listen, the reality of the situation is when we went from 2 wide to 4 wide racing in Vegas in the spring, the crowd basically tripled. When we have the 4 wide race in Charlotte in the spring, the crowd is at least twice the size of the 2 wide race. So, the reality is people love watching it. And, at the end of the day, as a spectator sport, you have to do what spectators want to see, whether people like it or not. They're going to come compete, and we want the spectators to come see them. So it's to me, it's a pragmatic decision, and it's like, you got to do what you got to do, and clearly they're voting with their dollars and their eyeballs.
And if you like smoke and noise and the smell of drag racing, having 4 cars at one time must be like having fighter jets fly over your head.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you see a 2 wide race, you don't think it can possibly get any louder, and then all of a sudden 4 of them are up there, and it is. If you're close enough to them, it is verging on the painful. If you're on the starting line when 4 of them go off at the same time, it really is beyond any sort of ability of mine to describe what it feels like. It's just this high frequency vibration, the noise, the smoke, the fumes of the nitro engines. It's wild.
Do you have a favorite track? Do you have one that you go to and you're like, this is the one
I love New.
Oh yeah,
New England Dragway. I love Epping because it's like going to Fenway Park. I love the Red Sox, and going to those 2 places are special. But to me, other than that, it's where we're going this week out at Indy because it's so much history. The race is the oldest continuous drag race in the world, and it's been going since '55. And it's the biggest, most important race we have. And I just love the fact that we just have this big unveiling of a brand new timing tower. The facility's getting upgraded in phases. It's really fantastic.
Street Outlaws type car channel racing, what do you think?
It's had its moment in the sun. I think when we look at, it's what we would classify as what we call no prep style drag racing. So
Right.
That style of drag racing is still pretty popular around the country. It's just not popular in the way that those guys were doing it. Like once the show went off the air, the whole kind of genre around those specific guys kind of fell off a little bit. But there's a lot of no prep style racing going on around the country. A lot of young guys like to do it, and anything that gets people and cars into a drag strip, I'm for. It keeps those places open. It gives people something to do. It's productive, and it keeps them off the streets. So I'm for it.
Yeah. Whenever you get new people interested in, like you pointed out, plain and simple, you love things with tires on them, and anytime you can get people interested in that, I think is a phenomenal thing. And whether it's young people that are racing, what we called, imports back then. When you see somebody tuning a Supra with a laptop and it's 900 horsepower, it's pretty impressive.
It is, and it's the same stuff. Guys did it 50 years ago with a screwdriver, the same job that kid's doing with a laptop. So it's as much as people want to talk about how much everything's changed, the reality of the situation is the only thing that's changed is just the tools you use. I mean, it's still a lot of test and tune nights at the drag strip, the same they were in the 70s with grudge night. You show up there with your stuff, maybe bolt a set of slicks on and see how fast you can go. The cars look different and the technology is different, but it's still the same game.
And hope it doesn't break so you can drive home.
That's a fact. That is an absolute fact.
Yeah. No, it's really good. It's really good. And again, I think, whatever we can do to encourage people to really enjoy motorsports, I think is great. And what you do, I mean, you do such a good job, announcing the races, but also you have your own sort of history channel too. You have your own podcast that you do. Before we let you go, tell us a little bit about that and where people can find it.
Yeah, so I have like everybody else these days, I guess, I have a YouTube channel. It's just my name, Brian Lohnes, if you search that. And I do historical documentaries on race cars. I do it on engines. I did a long video on the history of the Offenhauser engine. It's not just drag racing stuff. It's all different motorsport stuff and even some non-motorsport stuff. I did one about the New England Timber Reclamation Administration, or New England Timber Salvage Administration after the hurricane of 1938. It's a fantastic story about all these millions of acres of forest that got blown over, how the government worked with local lumbermen and all the local communities to save all this wood and not crush the market. So I love stories like that highlight teamwork and creative problem solving, and a lot of that stuff translates back to racing. So you can find that on YouTube, or if you listen to podcasts, you can go to the Dorkomotive podcast, which is basically that's another kind of thing that I do, and that's just an audio deal. So if you want to listen to something in the car about racing history, mechanical history, even the history of Ferris wheels, I got that too.
Yeah, you have a pretty wide range of things that you talk about, which I think makes it really interesting. And I don't know. It's just you border on a workaholic, I think.
Yeah, I think for me that's my enjoyment is making these things. I enjoy it. You call it a hobby, you can call it a second job, you can call it whatever you want. But I really enjoy the research element of it, and then assembling the story and putting something out that people like watching. So it's my way to chill out and relax, I guess.
When you're on vacation, do you still find yourself going to, I don't know, car museums or local cruise nights or stuff like that?
It depends on what we're doing. If we're somewhere to see cool stuff and there's something that doesn't drag everybody too far out of the way, yes. I mean, we've hit places like the Henry Ford Museum, the Museum of the United States Air Force. There's a lot of great places to visit and enjoy a day that can take you through either history or just cool stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'm never too far away from it, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Every time I drive by the Don Garlits Museum, I keep saying to my wife, we got to pull in, but it hasn't happened yet.
Check it out, man.
Yeah.
And he's in there too. I mean, he's 94 years old and he looks like he's about 65, and he'll be walking around the museum and he'll be glad to talk to you about anything you could bring up. He is one of the most incredible people I've ever met, and he is a gift to still have around.
Yeah, he really is. I think he lives across the street.
Yeah, his house is on the property. Yeah, he built that. He built that whole thing with his house on the property back in the early '80s. Yep.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. No, he's. I met him. I don't know, 20 years ago, and he has Popeye arms, and he still does at 90-something years old.
Yeah, there was footage of him putting together a 392 Hemi last week, and he's winging those, iron cylinder heads around that weigh like 100 pounds apiece like they're nothing. And he does. He's got a set of forearms on him that could probably still tear a telephone book in half. It's amazing.
I know, it really is. So, Brian, if people want to catch you this weekend, this week coming up or weekend coming up, how do they do that?
Sure. So our coverage, if you want to just watch drag racing, starting on Wednesday, you're going to be able to watch free and live. If you go to NHRA's YouTube page, there's all the sportsman qualifying that's going on. That's going to be streamed for free. And then starting on Sunday, we have multiple shows on FS1. And then on Monday, our elimination show will be from 2 to 5 p.m. on, if you're in the Boston market, it'll be Fox 25. Will be on the network from 2 to 5 p.m. Monday. And that'll be the 73rd running of the U.S. Nationals. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it really sounds like a good time. It sounds like a good time to, watch some racing, get your kids involved in it, let them watch it. It's fantastic. Brian, thanks for taking some time out of your Sunday and joining us on the Car Doctor.
Thanks, John.
Program. All right, take care, Brian.
Be good, man.
See you. All right, that was Brian Lohnes. Just an overall car guy, but an overall car guy that he may be right there with one of the most famous people I know now. Just a good guy. I met him. I think I met him 20 years ago, maybe at some tire testing event that was going on, and and he became a member of the New England Motor Press Association. When he's not at races, I see him at meetings. So, but he's amazing how he's got to where he is, and it isn't because he's really, really good at it. Why don't we take a break, pay some bills? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. If you want to join us, our phone number is 781-837-4900. When we come back, I want to talk about the Mini Cooper. Fun, frustrating, all of that. You're listening to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
Even car geeks and do-it-yourselfers rely on AAA to give them extra peace of mind on the road. AAA offers 24/7 roadside assistance, whether you're in your own vehicle, a friend's car, or even a rental. Combine that with great rates on insurance, hotel, gas, and dining savings, and discounts on 8,700 brands, and you're covered on and off the road. Get a special membership offer today at AAA.com/join. That's AAA.com/join.
August 19th, 1998, Bob Murphy finally took a vacation. You just can't put in 18-hour days forever. So Bob loaded up the tents, the fishing poles, the firewood, camp stove, the steaks, the soda, the beer, mattresses, sleeping bags, lanterns, and the canoe. It all fit neatly into the big van, even the canoe, except it was sticking out the back a little too far. Bob's daughter Mandy warned him, "Dad, it's going to hit the windshield." Just a little bit more, honey. It'll be all right." Bob's a gentleman, but he is human. So let's just say that Daddy doesn't usually say those things. And we can add that Tiny will come to your home, your work, or your campsite and fix your windshield.
I'm Peter Brown of Tiny & Sons Auto Glass in Pembroke. If your windshield is broken, just call 1-888-64-TINIES. And thank you.
Hi there, it's Paul Kabillion from Kabillions Car Care at 104 Mattakesa Street in Pembroke. Vacation season is here, and the time to take care of your car is now, before those road trips. Kabillions is always here to make sure you're road ready. To schedule an appointment, call 781-834-6558. Find us at 104 Mattakesa Street in Pembroke, or find us online at KabillionsCarCare.com.
Thanks a million, Mr. Kabillion!
Won't you step into the light?
Hi, I'm Dan Chauvin. Step into the light and tune into Twilight Showcase Radio, hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James on 95.9 WATD and 95.9WATD.com. Search for Twilight Showcase on Facebook and visit twilightshowcase.org.
Twilight Showcase, tonight from 8 to 10 on 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program. If you would like to join us, our phone number is 781-837-4900. If you want to hang on the phone with Bill, we'll get to you in just a minute, Bill. I want to talk about the 2025 Mini Cooper S, and the one I drove was a convertible, and the Cooper S means it's a little bit more powerful. It uses a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. Oddly, it doesn't have manual shifting capability, which seems like it would have paddle shifters, but it doesn't. But it is a fun little car. It certainly is. It's got a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's about 200 horsepower, a little bit more torque, I think 220 or so foot-pounds of torque. Go to 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds, which today isn't supercar fast, but still fast enough. The transmission shifts smooth. Again, no paddle shifters, which seems a bit odd. You can put it into L for a sportier shift map, but it's not. And you know, as much as paddle shifters are nice, I still like a real transmission with a real clutch pedal. My neighbor happens to have a Cooper S. It's an older one. I think it's a 2014 or 15 or something like that. And it is so about the same engine, but it's actually a manual, which makes it more fun to drive. It's still a go-kart, no matter how you look at it. Darts through corners. It's a lot of fun to drive. You know, I read somewhere it's not as raw as older models. I think that's good because the older ones that I drove all seem to break. Is it an English car? Well, it's really a BMW. You know, Mini Cooper was English, but today these are more BMW design. I put on Facebook, it is fun and frustrating. One of the reasons is it has a 9.5-inch circular touchscreen, and it's kind of retro futuristic, if that makes any sense. So it looks, the display is old, but because it's OLED instead of LED, I guess, it makes it look more modern. It's just it's you know, you go to adjust the climate control, and next thing you know, the seat heater's on, or you know, you go to try to change the radio. It's just, it looks really good. Functionality, not so good, at least with me. Maybe you get used to it. The seats I found were really comfortable. Rear seats are, well, they have one. They have rear seats. Bags maybe. With the front seats move forward, maybe kids, maybe. Even with the top down, I don't think adults would, you know, you'd have to be you'd have to be really squished in there. It has a clever 2-stage opening top, which, so it can open like a sunroof, so you can keep part of it open, and then if you want, the whole top comes down. I found that to work better in theory than in reality, and maybe if you're shorter it's fine, but I found when I opened up the top in sort of sunroof mode, it was too much blowing around inside the cabin. I just found it annoying, so I put the top all the way down, which I really liked. It is a really good top down car. Top goes down pretty quick. Like I said, the turbo works good. It's got a indicator in it. I think it's in the go-kart mode, tells you how many horsepower it's using. And it still goes, as you know, we talk about horsepower a lot. 60 miles an hour, you only need about 10 horsepower to maintain that 60 miles an hour. So it is, you know, you don't need 1 million horsepower, but the 200 horsepower does make it feel really good. You know, this falls into the car, the saying of life's too short to drive boring cars. This is not a boring car. You know, when the world is full of kind of dull and boring SUVs and crossovers, now there's some really good ones that aren't dull and boring. But if you want to drive a convertible, you want to drive something that's fun, you want to drive something that handles well, you can put up with kind of the cheeky, tech-savvy, you know, interior pieces. I think it's a good choice. You won't get to shift the gears by yourself, but you'll get to drive it It feels fun to drive. It's easy to park. I went to the Plymouth Seaside Festival yesterday, where I got to meet Jim from North Reading. He came down, and we'll talk to Jim in just a minute. But there was 1 million people in Plymouth yesterday. And, Jesse, I'm not exaggerating. 1 million people in Plymouth. And, finding a parking space was hard. I'm glad I had this Mini Cooper because there was one parking space and an end parking lot, way down at the other end of where the WATD tent was. And most people tried to fit in it, couldn't fit in it because there was a SUV on one side kind of parked on the line and a Ford van on the other side. And people drove by the spot, tried to edge their way in it, couldn't get it, couldn't open the doors. I was happy to be in the Mini Cooper where I could get in, get out, and finally found a parking space, so it was good. So that's the Mini Cooper S Convertible. Again, it's vibrant, it's wind in your hair, it's fun to drive, but it's, it can be a little aggravating. But I guess like all things, you take a lot of the good with a little bit of the aggravation, and you end up good at the end. Let's talk to Bill in Malden. Bill, good morning.
Good morning, John.
How are you?
The question, pretty good. And yourself? You
good.
Doing all right?
Good. I'm doing all right.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. I have a kind of hoping you've run into the situation before. The vehicle I'm driving, it's a 2013, and it's about to turn 140,000 on the clocks this week, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to need some work. I'm looking at brakes and a lot of suspension work. But in the interim, I've become aware of several vehicles the same year, and one that's a 14, and two of them have over 100,000 miles less than the car I'm driving. I haven't seen these vehicles because I don't believe it. One has 28,000 claimed, and the other has 19,000.
What kind of car is it?
The car I'm driving is a 2013 Lincoln MKS.
Okay.
And I think value-wise, these things have just dropped off the marketplace and stuff. But if those mileages could be substantiated, my question, John, would it be worth buying one of those cars and just foregoing the repairs that this car is going to need?
Yeah,
because I do like the cut.
Yeah, I mean, what as an example, the one with the kind of a little bit higher mileage, what are they looking to get for that?
I think 20,000. That's a 2014. It's the exact everything I have. All the options: canner roof, the drive itself to a parking spot. All these things I've never used.
Right.
And
the question always becomes, you look at your car and try to determine its value, and you go, what could I do to my car with, $15,000 if I put it into it? How long is my car going to last with 100,000 more miles on it than these cars have? My concern always is with a 12-year-old or 13-year-old car that only has 15, 20, 30,000 miles on it. How was it taken care of in those 13 years? Did it still get the oil? Did it still get the oil change regularly? I mean, it is possible that where this is a sedan, people didn't drive them as much. Somebody just, it was a short distance driver. But on the other hand, lack of use in some cases is worse than abuse for a car. So sometimes when you buy a low mileage car, depends where it was stored, depends how it was driven. That can be a problem. Some of these cars had the 3.5 turbo. Some of them had, I think, the 3.7 in them. The turbo would worry me a little bit because they've had some problems with them. Is yours the turbocharged one or the non-turbocharged one?
Yes. In fact, John, one of them has been replaced. I forget how many thousand miles ago.
Yeah, and that would even concern me on the low miles cars because depending on how they were driven and depending on oil changes and all kinds of things, mechanical parts don't like sitting still. And if somebody said, well, I drive the car once a week for about 30 miles a week, it's probably perfect. For somebody who drove it every day for a mile a day, those are the ones that can be problems.
Yeah. You've already addressed that's one of the biggest issues. That lack of use is almost as bad as overuse. And of course, getting one of those vehicles wouldn't preclude it having all the problems I have with this one over the years.
That's right. Suspension-wise, that can, that's as much age-related as miles-related. So, and even some of the little, nuisance-y things, switches that, act up and components that act up, those things can go bad just because of age as much as use. Something like, internally, the climate control system, one of the little motors that opens and closes the vents, which can turn into a nightmare repair, they can go bad. They can go bad just from sitting too.
Yeah. Very good. I'm still at that point where I'd love to see these cars just to see how they represent themselves.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to let it go for now, I think.
There you go. Yeah. It's I think it's a shame that Lincoln stopped making sedans. I think Lincoln, they were like, Cadillac, they built really good cars, and the idea that they did away with things like, whether it's something like the MKS or something like a town car, that's what they were known for, solid cars and sedans, and the idea that I'm going to go buy a Lincoln, but it's an SUV. Well, not everybody wants an SUV. I mean, it's no.
It's interesting you mentioned the twin turbos. This car goes right along. I mean, you hit the gas, she'll scoot along. I mean, and then one final question, John. These things I'm looking at with the suspension and brakes. When I do the brakes, I was just going to have them tear into the suspension. Is that something Sullivan Tire could do?
Oh yeah, I would think so, because they have all the scan tools necessary to reset everything when they're done. So, and what's also kind of nice about Sullivan Tire, they actually have a couple of guys now. They're sort of mobile guys, and they're the ones that have all the sophisticated equipment when stuff doesn't go the way it's supposed to. They work with, so they're sort of like the equivalent of, there's a lot of tech assist phone numbers and websites and stuff. They have sort of their own guy who does that. And I met one of the guys, and he's a sponge for knowledge, and he just knows everything and does everything. So yeah, I would think Sullivan Tire could do this work without any problem.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
You enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll talk to you in the future.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Now, it's not often I meet somebody in person because, well, I never leave the house, it seems like. But, WATD had a booth at the Plymouth Seaside Festival yesterday, and Jim from North Reading showed up, and now he's on the phone. Jim, good morning.
Good morning. Highlight of my day yesterday was meeting you. I couldn't stop talking about it when I came home.
Well, I'm sad that was the highlight of your day, because but I will admit, having you come down, and it's funny, Rob Hackler came down a little while later to help break down the booth, and I said, one of our regular listeners, and I said, I love our listener family. I said, one of our regular listeners showed up, and he's from North Reading. And he said, that's like 70 miles away. And I said, yeah, but he stopped on by, and it was great. So I was talking about you as much as probably you were talking about me. So,
thank you. I did get to listen to the podcast that I missed because of the streaming problems this morning.
Oh,
and
okay.
I was fascinated by the Slate pickup truck. Did you happen to get to Newport?
No, I didn't get to Newport to go see it, and I am, I kind of wonder how they're really going to do, because they were really counting on the federal, tax credit stuff and all that too. At closer to 30,000, but I like, and I guess, everybody says this. Everybody's looking for a small, basic pickup truck, except they go out and they buy a GMC Denali or a, Ford, F-150 with, every bell and whistle and, special leather interior in it. But I like the idea of this pickup truck that is just a pickup truck. It's not really pretended to be much more than that. I kind of wonder about the SUV kit that you can buy for it to turn it into a little two-door SUV, but only because I kind of there's a fair amount of assembly required to do that, because it actually comes with rear seat airbags and stuff too. But just the idea of this two-door, three-person, I guess, 5 or so foot bed that you can, that has the ability to carry some stuff. I mean, there are days that I really wish I had a pickup truck. Usually my little SUV can do everything I need to do, except, I wouldn't want to shovel dirt in the back of it. But just the idea of this basic truck, and, although it's probably beyond my technical level, the idea that you can 3D print accessories kind of just fascinates me, that they send you the information, and it's like, if you have a 3D printer, you can make your own cup holders, or you make your own iPhone holder or something. There's part of this sort of assemble it yourself kind of part of this truck that I really kind of like, and the idea that it can go 150 or 200 miles on a charge and plug it in and charge it back up. I don't know. I think it has potential. Well, and it's got the guy behind us, the Amazon guy, so there's plenty of money behind it.
Well,
so what do you?
That's encouraging.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like there. Over the years, there has been some startups of weird little electric trucks and cars, and I've talked to a lot of these different people, and they never go anywhere because they don't really have the budget. I mean, I forget the name of it, but there was a 3-wheel or maybe 4-wheel electric car, and it was actually a cab driver in New York, I think, that he was an engineer by trade, but he was a cab driver most of the time, and he invented this little car, and I saw a real one sort of at the New York Auto Show. It never happened because he didn't have the budget behind it. And, when you got somebody like, the Amazon guy behind a vehicle, there's probably a pretty good chance it's going to get built and it's going to get sold. But you still go back, I like talking car history with people, because if you look back over the last 100 years, a lot of car companies went out of business.
Well, that was my concern, but a $50 deposit, I guess I'll gamble.
Well, I was talking to, I think I've talked to half a dozen people now that put $50 down. Now the real question is, where are you in line to be able to get one?
Yeah, and you probably don't find out until you put the deposit down, or you still don't even find out.
You probably still, but it's way better than Tesla, which started off kind of building a sports car. They took a Lotus and took all the engine out of it and built a electric sports car. They said they were going to build an electric supercar, sports car, is going to 0 to 60 in stupid, 2 seconds or whatever. And I believe the deposit was $50,000. And unless you wanted one of the first 100, then it was a $200,000 deposit. And I have no idea how much this thing costs. But I know a guy who put the $50,000 down, and that was 5 years ago. And he's still no closer to getting a car than he was 5 years ago. So I think putting $50 down on a slate, I think I would take a chance. And you can get your money back. So what do you think, Jim?
Going for it.
Going for it. And sure. It was a pleasure meeting you yesterday. I got to meet a few of our local listeners as well. But the idea that you were in the area and came down, I hope you enjoyed yourself at the little festival there, and had fun.
I did. I spent a little money, had some lunch, and got to meet my favorite talk show, Dr. Talk Show.
There you go. There you go. Well, thanks, Jim.
Have a good day, John.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See, Jesse, he's a fan, see? Just because, you pretend to be, And I know Jesse's having a little trouble at his end hearing me, so. Because you're working hard.
I've never had trouble.
Never had trouble? Okay. All right. Why don't we take a break, pay some bills? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're sitting on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
Even car geeks and do-it-yourselfers rely on AAA to give them extra peace of mind on the road. AAA offers 24/7 roadside assistance, whether you're in your own vehicle, a friend's car, or even a rental. Combine that with great rates on insurance, hotel, gas, and dining savings, and discounts on 8,700 brands, and you're covered on and off the road. Get a special membership offer today at AAA.com/join. That's AAA.com/join.
Oh no, someone ran a shopping cart into my car when I left it unattended.
Auto Shine Auto Body. You bend it, they mend it.
My kid didn't see that giant telephone pole when he opened the door. Now look at it. How splendid.
Auto Shine Auto Body. You bend it, they mend it.
The chucklehead behind me was texting and driving, and now I'm rear-ended.
Auto Shine Auto Body. You bend it, they mend it.
I don't even know how this happened, but look, my bumper's dented.
Auto Shine Auto Body. You bend it, they mend it.
Your buddy just had a great experience fixing his car. Who was that he recommended?
Auto Shine Auto Body. You bend it, they mend it. For over 20 years, Auto Shine Auto Body has been providing friendly, fast, professional, and affordable services you can count on. Auto Shine Auto Body is a gold-certified auto body shop with locations in Abington and Braintree. Whether you're using your insurance company or paying out of pocket, Auto Shine Auto Body will work with you. Find them online at AutoshineAutoBody.com. Auto Shine Auto Body. You bend it, they mend it.
Hey there, folks. It's Quinn Kelly reminding you to tune in Sunday night at 5 for the South Shore's first voice in sports talk radio, The Sports Exchange. Unmatched coverage of local high school action as well as a relatable voice on all things Boston Pro Sports. We've got you covered live at 5 every Sunday night. Have a question for our host, missed last week's show, or just want to share a great sports story? You can find us on Twitter at SE on WATD. But remember, mark your calendar, folks, and we'll see you Sunday night at 5 for the Sports Exchange on 95.9 WATD.
Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program. A couple of questions that came in this week. I have a Toyota Tacoma that has a problem. The battery goes dead eventually. Take a comma out of that question. The shop thought a parasitic drain, but after doing some testing, after about 20 minutes, any drain is gone. They suggested a new battery and an alternator. The battery, because this one has died a few times in the last month. The alternator, because it didn't seem right. I replaced both myself, and now 8 weeks later, a dead battery. Any thoughts on this? I think the shop was headed in the right direction. I would look for, and I talk about voltage drop a lot, I would want to see what the alternator output is at the alternator and then at the battery. I've seen some cases where, the alternator is putting out 14.2, 14.3 volts, but when you check it at the battery, it's, 13.2. So you've lost a volt somewhere along the line. And only charging 13 volts or 12.5 volts or whatever you're seeing at the battery is enough that over time, over that 8 weeks or however long it's been, that's enough for the battery just to go dead. So a little bit, loses a little bit every day you get driving it. So I would start by looking at corrosion. I'd pull the power and ground wires off. I'd clean them. I'd maybe don't just look at the cable ends themselves, look back a little bit into the leads. And this is a case where an ohm meter doesn't always tell you the real story. You can check an ohm meter and put it on one end of the negative cable and the other end of the negative cable, and it says, there's good continuity. But you put it under a strain, you crank the engine over, and all of a sudden you see voltage drop because there's a poor connection in there. So that could be it. There could be multiple ground wires on this Tacoma, and you've lost one or two of them for whatever reason. So there you go. This one, I like this question, and two questions came in that were kind of funny. One asked me about, is J.C. Whitney still around, and I said no, they got bought by, I think it was Car Parts or something. And somebody emailed me this morning. I used that same question in a column, and I said, yeah, you can still get every kind of Jeep part in the world from these people, but no more Winky the cat, which was you could buy it from J.C. Whitney catalogs. It was like this fake cat you put in your back window, and its eyes would blink when you had the turn signals on. But this person says, I have a silly, dumb question. I watch a lot of YouTube videos on car repair. I've heard several of the hosts talk about letting the smoke out when testing electronics. What does that mean? Well, it's an old expression, and it comes from the idea that all electronics run on smoke. And when you let the smoke out of the part, it does not work. Well, they don't really have smoke in them. But if you short something out by testing it, it'll overheat, burn, smoke, and all of a sudden now that part doesn't work anymore because you shorted it out. Because you let the smoke out. There's no smoke, but you did cause a short. And as good as there's a tool called a Power Probe. A lot of people use them. I have two versions of them. I have a $20 one that I bought off of Amazon. Basically what it is, it's a fancy test light that has power and ground, so you can actually apply ground to something and you can apply power to something. Well, if you apply power to something that's not supposed to have 12 volts of power, you will let the smoke out of it. So if it's something that's only designed to run on 5 volts, the difference between the $20 Amazon one and the better version of the Innova one that I have is the Innova one actually has a circuit breaker in it. So if you do something dumb, it actually pops its own internal circuit breaker. So it doesn't damage the tool and may not damage the component. But you need to be careful with them because you can apply power to places that aren't supposed to have power. So if you apply power to a ground, it's going to pop the internal circuit breaker so it doesn't damage the tool. The $20 one, I haven't tested it to see if it works, but I did spend $22 on it and I don't want to break it. So, and they are, on complex electronics, they're real handy. On simple electronics, like things like if you have a utility trailer or any other kind of little trailer that the lights don't work, really good tool to, is it a bad ground? Is it a bad power? Is it this, that? Really handy for that kind of thing. So, my thoughts would be buy a little better one. The $22 one, not quite as good. Get the Innova one. There we go. We used up an hour today. Until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car, and if you see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.